Hello, friends. Welcome to a real live football edition of the Happy Half Hour, daily training camp edition. It's real live football because they're wearing football pads today.
That is what makes it football. Other than that, it's just 7-on-7.
And you could tell the difference immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a physicalness about today's practice that was evident from start to finish, and it's a little closer to what Dave Canales wants to see out of this team. We can get into a lot of the details of the day and that kind of stuff in a second, but I think more than anything else, Dave talked after practice about, this is where you find out what you're going to be about.
Right.
This is where you find out, what our us is, as he likes to say, and it's from Rob Hunt blocking Ashawn Robinson. It's from D-Lou and Dirk Wharton going after each other. It's from Chuba Hubbard, taking a shot from somebody and giving one right back.
Right.
I mean, these are the kind of things you expect. I mean, especially when it's pushing 100 degrees out there, you expect tempers to flare. They did. Trevin Wallace takes a shot at Chuba late in practice, kind of puts one on him, and Chuba came up and took offense, and then there was a whole thing. The one thing that was neat about this little kerfuffle was that there was a secondary kerfuffle over here on the side of people who objected to the initial kerfuffle. And you get this kind of stuff. I mean, it's the most predictable. It's the most predictable thing ever. But even Chuba, even though he had a big old knot on his head, Chuba called that an eggnog. By the way,
he did, which I've heard it called like an egg before.
I've heard egg,
but eggnog. And I said it later to somebody, and when I did, I stopped myself because I was like, eggnog, where did that come from? And then I was like, oh, that's what Chuba called it.
Yeah.
Must be a Canadian thing. We need to ask him about it. It stood out, buddy. That's
the best I can imagine. I mean, it's a little warm for eggnog, but this is a pro-nog podcast, as you guys well know. We've been talking about eggnog here on the Happy Half Hour for years and years. Mm-hmm. But, Chuba was in a good mood. I mean, I think one of the things, it's a misconception about football. People see, they tune in their favorite highlight show in the evening or consume their digital media, and they say, training camp fight, these guys hate each other.
No.
90% of the time they do not. Chuba was already laughing about it by the time he finished catching jugs and got over to do a press conference after practice. So it was, all well-intentioned. As he said, I tend to react kind of crazy sometimes too. And he kind of went back at Trev a little bit, but I think that's all part of it this time of year.
I mean, as cliche as this sounds, I'm literally picking the most cliche metaphor I could for this, but it is very much siblings, squabbling when it's hot or you're tired or you've had too much of each other,
right?
And you need to be looking at somebody else.
Well,
and that's all. It's Dave Canales made the point. He said, because they finished practice, it wasn't cut short or anything. They went on and finished practice. And Dave said, this wasn't really much. I just made sure to get the music back on as soon as possible. Right. Just to keep us moving.
Dave Canales is big into the reaction to the thing, and I mean, he wants his guys to be able to reset, refocus, and get back to doing their jobs. So the idea, and it kind of struck me as odd when the question came about cutting practice short, and it's like, Dave Canales wouldn't do that because he's trying to teach guys, he's trying to build that reaction time so that they know when games start happening that, okay, recenter, get back to what we're doing.
Come back to us.
Yeah, exactly.
What he says.
Come back to us. You sound like Dave Canales.
I've heard him say it about 73 times at this point. But you're right. He has talked about that. He talked about that over the weekend when it was, 117 out there or whatever it was on Saturday as well.
1 million degrees.
That, football's going to be emotional. You're going to get passionate. That's fine. Experience those emotions in the moment, but then learn how to control them as soon as the whistle blows and come back to us.
Yeah.
And we start over.
No doubt. And I think the key, and where today really feels like in a lot of ways start a training camp, is Dave Canales wants Carolina Panthers to be a physical football team on both lines. You saw that when they spent $150 million on 650 pounds of guard last year in free agency. You saw it this year in free agency when they go out in the first couple hours and add Bobby Brown and Tershawn Wharton to a group that was also getting Derek Brown back from a knee injury, and then came along and spent a fifth-round pick later on Cam Jackson, who's gigantic in a way that few people not named Derek Brown and Rob Hunt are. Mm-hmm. So this is what they're going to look like. These are the kind of battles you're going to see when these guys start getting after it. And that's why, today was the day, since the linemen are wearing pads for the first time, this is the first time that part of it starts looking like football again. Mm-hmm. One of the things that always tickles me when it's in the 7-on-7 portion of practice, when they run around. Princely, Umamielans, had a good camp so far.
Yes.
He flashes. He's quick. He's got spin move that can create problems for a lot of offensive linemen.
Speed.
But he's a little narrow compared to, say, for instance, an Ike Ekwonu.
Yeah.
So when Ike puts on pads and is able to negate some of that speed by putting mass on somebody, that slows all that down, and it starts looking a little more like football. And again, Princely's had a good camp, and he's going to show up, and he's shown flashes that indicate he's going to be good at pass rushing. But I think it's probably worth remembering that offensive line that they invested so much in last year, still really, really good and still kind of the core of what they're building.
So much so, somebody brought up a question to Chuba today that I had not heard about or didn't catch when it happened. But I went back and found it. You know, Ben Johnson talking this offseason about mimicking the Panthers' approach with their offensive line and doing that same thing in Chicago. So you've seen, you see it, that they went with a clear plan, and then you see that it worked. And then bringing them back, that makes such a difference on an offense. I mean, look at so many other incredibly talented quarterbacks around the league. You know, I remember hearing Marcus Spears say all the time, it don't matter who's throwing the ball if he's doing it on his back.
Yeah.
You got to get somebody in front of him.
This team's been making an impression on Ben Johnson for a long time, even back to 22 when they put 320 on the ground against the Lions on a day that was about 0 degrees here in Bank of America Stadium.
That just doesn't sound fun.
No, it was not fun. Not for me, not for anybody. But that being said, I always get a kick. When they get in pads for the first time, I make a beeline for offense, defensive line one-on-ones. I am old enough to remember the Jordan Gross, Julius Peppers battles of yore. And it was so much fun. I used to get a kick out of that. Jordan and I've laughed about it a lot. He was like, oh, I got to tell the story about Julius again, huh? But watching two guys of that level beat on each other on a regular basis for about 8 years was a lot of fun for me as a football watcher.
Yeah.
So, you had a great technician and one of the most physically gifted specimens of all time in this game, just going at it day by day. And it didn't get to that point because, again, that's a Hall of Famer and also a Hall of Honor left tackle we're talking about. But watching those one-on-ones today was a reminder that, oh, yeah, this offensive line's really good because when you start off on the right and Timo takes a rep and stones Pat Jones, okay, that's a good start. And then you get a Ashawn Robinson in front of Rob Hunt. There was a rep.
That's a lot of mass.
There was a rep today, and I'm going to write more about this later this afternoon. You'll see it on Panthers.com in a few. Rob Hunt stands up Ashawn Robinson. And it should be noted that Ashawn Robinson, very good at football, a big and strong man who throws people around on a routine basis. Had, 5.5 sacks, I think it was, last year. Had a couple taken away. Had a really good year last year and is an insanely large human being. And Rob just kind of forklifts him and stops him in his tracks, and it's like, oh, my. You just are reminded how big and powerful and strong Rob Hunt is and what he adds to this team when you put on pads and when you run the ball.
Yeah. That's really when you have to evaluate what a team is going to be as well. We can look a lot at receivers and DBs in the previous practices, and there were some impressive moments. But what are you going to do when the pads come on? In the trenches, of course. But even just there was a play today where T-Mac kind of took off and got down the sidelines. And anytime you're doing that with extra weight on, that's what you really want to see.
Right.
What does a guy look like when he's trying to run full speed with that extra weight on his shoulders, on his legs, so on and so forth? How is he using his body when it's on? And it was one of the more impressive plays T-Mac has had in one-on-ones. I think it might have been his only catch in one-on-ones so far the past couple of days.
They call that play speed.
Play speed, exactly. And you kind of realize, okay, this is tangible. This is something that can be really added to this offense. And that was across the board.
No doubt. And you mentioned T-Mac. One of the other things that's stood out to me about him in the last couple of days, there was a play today where he's coming across the middle, catches ball in stride, and keeps going.
Yeah.
And Canales talked about that, too, after practice. And he was like, when you've got somebody with that kind of stride, when you hit him on the move accurately, and Bryce put the ball right where it needed to be, when you can get it to T-Mac while he's on the move, he's got that kind of long speed that can turn as he said, a 15-yard dig into an explosive
45
play.
yards, yeah.
Bryce liked that one. You could tell when he was talking about it after practice. He was kind of into that sequence because, that's what he's looking for. I mean, as accurate as he is as a quarterback, if you can hit somebody who can make things happen on the move, that opens door for a lot of big plays.
And Canales had an interesting quote about that play afterwards, too. He said, if we hit him in stride, everybody's doing something right. Mm-hmm. Bryce is doing something right. We're doing something right with the play call. He didn't say that part. I'm putting words in his mouth, but I knew what he meant. The play call was right. Bryce was right. The protection was right. Everything was right if you're hitting a guy like that in stride. And then he can take it from there.
Yeah, no doubt. But today was a big day. A lot of reasons. Special guests were in the house. Clemson coach Dabo Swinney.
Swinney was in.
And, or as he's known around here, Hunter Renfrow's old coach.
Yeah.
That's what we call him. It was cool seeing those two guys catch up. You had a chance to talk to Dabo while we were over there.
It was so funny because Hunter had gone through one-on-ones and yet again kind of dominated the one-on-ones. I was wondering if you had a reading on the very last rep of one-on-ones because he had a great move. He juked the guy. He gets loose. He catches the ball. But there was a flag, and I think you were standing over there on the side. Was it a flag against Hunter?
I didn't get the pool report on that flag specifically. Didn't get a ruling.
Nobody knew quite for sure. But it was interesting because then he comes over to the side. Dabo immediately starts coaching him on what he's supposed to do and whatnot. Yeah. Hunter kind of laughed about it afterwards. He said, well, Coach Swinney always has all the answers. And I was like, yeah, he does. But Dabo talked about it as well. He's like, listen, I've been coaching Hunter for a long time. Mm-hmm. And, it's an old habit to break.
Yep.
I didn't realize, and granted, I didn't grow up a Clemson fan or in the Carolinas, so this might be old news to all y'all, but I didn't realize he's known Hunter since he was a kid. Mm-hmm. And that he grew up, that those two families grew up around each other, which is kind of why, Hunter had a chance to walk on and originally was redshirted. And then he comes in there and he talked about it today, there was a bunch of 5-star recruits at Clemson at the time, and he went through that wide receiver list, and I'm remembering, I'm like, dang, that was one of the best wide receiver classes we've had in a long time in college football. And he's like, I got a bunch of 5-star wide receivers I'm fighting against. If you don't bring it every day, you're done.
Right.
And he brought it every day.
And who was it that caught the game-winning touchdown pass in the National championship game against Alabama?
Against Alabama. Thank you for throwing that part in there. That would have been Hunter Renfrow in Tampa Bay, front end of the end zone.
Too soon?
I'll make my case for a pick play later.
It was a big play, and all the Clemson fans in the area don't see it the same way as my fine product of the Alabama school system over here.
He had a big play at the beginning of that drive, too, to get them down there. He had a couple of big plays. He had tore us up in that game. Right. He tore us up, as he is apt to do. And he mentioned, this wide receiver group as well. He said this is the deepest wide receiver group he's been a part of in the NFL. Right. And he said it kind of reminds me of when I was back at Clemson and I had to fight against all those 5-stars. No doubt. Like, I got to come out here and bring it every day. And he keeps doing that, Darin. He did it again today. Yeah. Every time you look up, Hunter Renfrow's breaking some guy's ankles and making a catch.
Yeah, and a lot of one-on-one drills are built to benefit a guy like Hunter Renfro, right. a guy who's a really good route runner who can start, stop, accelerate, and that's built for him to look good. He's looking good anyway. He's catching things at unusual angles. Some of the photographs we've had, and, God bless Alex Herco, Andrew Stone, taking pictures for us out there on the field. Check out all those galleries on Panthers.com. But Renfro, put himself in weird positions, reaching back across his body. There was one we used last week, and, he just does things that have allowed him to stand out in this camp. And we've talked a lot about the receiver room being really deep, going to be hard to cut this roster down to 53 when you're thinking about either 6 or maybe 7 of those guys. But he does something every day in practice that makes you think, this is even tougher than I imagined.
Yeah.
And Canales has kind of taken to shrugging when he gets asked about him because he's like, man, this is the Hunter Renfro I remember who's catching 100 and some balls for Las Vegas and going to Pro Bowls.
Yeah. Hunter also said something today, too, that I thought was interesting because Dabo brought it up and then Hunter reiterated it, that when he did get the illness a couple years ago and stepped away, he was willing to be done. Mm-hmm. He was going to be done with football. Which, and he's talked extensively about that. You did a great story with him that people can read. But he was done as far as he was concerned. And he said he told Dabo Swinney at the time, maybe I'll go play for the Panthers. And he told his agent, like, the only team that we're taking, he said no to several teams.
Right.
And he told his agent, the only team we're taking a call from at this point is Carolina.
Yeah.
And it worked out, and look at him now.
It's neat. Hunter Renfrow is a guy who is from and of the Carolinas. He's got skin in this game at this place that he wouldn't have in other places because he's got family nearby. His wife and kids were up here Saturday when the families were on the sidelines. It's good. It's good for him. As he said, he's an hour and a half from the house. People are going to be coming to see Hunter Renfrow this summer. So he's been one of the neater stories of camp, and not just because of the story, but because he keeps making plays day after day after day.
And he's done it in team drills and 7-on-7. He had a play today that he caught from Andy Dalton. And it's really funny if you watch it on the video that we posted on the Panthers social media channels, because he just comes out of nowhere. It's like you see Andy put the ball up, and it's like, where's that going? Where's that going? Where's that going? And then here comes Hunter Renfrow from the left side of the screen just to dive in and catch it. He knows where he's supposed to be, and you see these quarterbacks in Bryce and Andy learning to trust that he's going to be there. And even if it doesn't look like it at the time, and, to Dabo's point, maybe not the biggest guy to kind of trust that he's got the stride to get there, but he finds a way. Even if it is, like you said, reaching out at a crazy angle to pull it in.
Yeah. And he has even he was able to facilitate Bryce Young, showing off that sense of humor
that
today,
may have been
too.
Bryce's funniest moment as a Panther.
With Dabo Swinney telling people that Hunter Renfrow is a lot like Superman. He may not look like much, but he changes into character, puts on a helmet, and he turns into a different guy. Somebody asked Bryce about Hunter Renfrow not looking very physically imposing.
Right.
And Bryce just deadpan says, I don't think I'm at liberty to say what a normal person looks like. And
it was pitch perfect delivery.
I mean, some people are funny all the time. Some people wake up in the morning telling jokes. Bryce has got this really wry sense of humor that takes a little bit to get warmed up, but he has that ability to just kind of slide one in when you're not expecting it. It's like, whoa, Bryce just did a funny thing right there.
Yeah, that was a funny moment for sure. Well done by Bryce all around.
Yeah, that wasn't all of it. I mean, all the way around. I mean, Hunter was cracking jokes about his 7 handicap playing golf.
Yeah.
He's like, I had a lot of time to practice last year.
Right.
I mean, these guys are all having a good time.
What he also said he had a lot of time to practice this last year is how to get creative on his routes. And he's like, I maybe get too creative at times, but he's like, I've had a year to sit there and think about it and think about what to do. Because he had a good point that these DBs have seen the same routes a million times. So how do you make it just a little bit different to throw them off?
Yeah.
And he's like, I had a year to think about it.
Had a year to think about it. So speaking of time to think, our item of the day, we have expanded our shelf of fame here on the Happy Half Hour into 2 shelves. It's like my stuff at home. I just keep expanding to fill the space available.
Are you bringing stuff from home? Is your wife like suggesting things like,
my
hey,
wife,
Darin, take that to the podcast studio?
My wife has many suggestions for things I could bring to the stadium.
She actually will let people in on a secret. She sent me a message the other day and she's like, what do you want me to send with Darin?
She's just what's that woman's name? We're reducing your stuff.
Marie Kondo.
Marie Kondo. She's trying to Marie Kondo my collection at home.
Do these things bring you joy?
These things bring me joy, And David Monroe dipped into the archives for an old Game Day magazine with Dom Capers on the cover from 1995. Look how young Dom Capers looked in 1995.
That's a sick hat that he's wearing in that picture, too. I really want that.
Dom is one of my favorite stories of this year's training camp. If you missed it on Panthers.com over the weekend, check it out. Dom Capers was missing for a lot of OTAs because he tore his hamstring.
He's an athlete.
He really is an athlete. He was out there running around, and Dom, if you don't know, gets up and works out every day. I mean, he's kept himself in incredible physical condition for a 74-year-old man, and he also has that encyclopedic memory of all things football. So when I was talking to him about his comeback, I mean, he was out basically for all of the June portion of OTAs. It was middle of May when he suffered the injury. He had the surgery, so he was basically down for 2 weeks where he couldn't do anything until the stitches came out. So he was calling people, pestering Todd Wash, wanting to talk about that day's practice and all this kind of stuff, just dying to get back on the practice field. And now he's able to be back out there. I mean, he's Dom, and there's such a reverence for him among everybody on the field. But I thought it was cool talking to DJ Wanham. I said, does he ever make references to stuff that you guys don't understand or refer to you as a player from 40 years ago that nobody's ever heard of? And he's like, he really doesn't. He keeps his coaching fresh. He knows how to talk to us about these concepts and make them come alive in a way other people don't, because he does know so much.
Yeah. It's a joy to have him around. He is one of my favorite people to run into in the hallway, on the field. And I think I might have told this story before, but just to your point about the encyclopedic mind, I remember we were in Chicago week 5 last year. Does that sound right? And we're standing on the sideline before the game. And Dom standing there with Dom. And I said something about, like, what's your favorite game you played in the stadium or something like that. And he talks about that NFC Championship.
I feel like this is 30 minutes later. Kassidy gets to the end of this story. No, I mean, Dom can go on and on about these things.
It was the NFC Championship when he was defensive coordinator for the Packers. They played versus the Bears in Chicago. I guess it would have been that 2010 season, 2011, when Green Bay went on to win the Super Bowl. And he said we had a play that it was an interception, ended up being an interception. He said, we drew it up on the sidelines over here. He said it was really like you're just at the sand lot and we're over here in the dirt and being like, okay, they've been running this. What if we put you here and then cut up here? And yeah, let's see if that'll work. He said, send them out there, intercepted the ball, Packers win the game.
Works perfectly. Yeah. That's Dom Capers, and that's why he is beloved not just here in Charlotte but across the NFL. Yeah. He's had an opportunity to work in a lot of places, and if you find somebody in the NFL. There are a lot of people in the NFL that might rub people the wrong way. If you ever find anybody who says, I hate that Dom Capers, what a bad guy he is.
That says more about them than Dom.
That's right. We love Dom here. We've got more to cover in the days to come. Keep it locked on Panthers.com throughout the day. Plenty of updates coming on that first day of practice. More stuff ahead. Lock it on the YouTube channel. Yep. We're going to have highlights coming your way. They live stream practice. Anish was out there live streaming practice today. Cool. So plenty of stuff coming your way on Panthers.com, on the YouTube channel. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. And until we see you tomorrow after what's supposed to be another 100-degree day of practice, that'll take care of today on the Happy Half Hour.